Thank you for the opportunity to present our study in this forum. My colleague and I are researchers at the School of Architecture at Parahyangan Catholic University in Bandung, West Java. I'm currently a fifth-year PhD candidate at the Taubman College of Architecture and Urban Planning, University of Michigan. Our presentations cover three works developed between 2014 and 2019 in three separate locations in West Java. We came from Indonesia, where our daily reality is that the country sits on a very active geotectonic junction. It also has the fact that almost 60% of the population do not formally own houses, and a large portions of them are categorized as having low income, who mostly live in houses with substandard quality, meaning they do not have the capacity to purchase or access expertise in architecture and building technology. The challenges we observe have been to mitigate the hazard risk and meet the building codes for safety standards while keeping the construction costs reasonably low and doing them all as ecologically sound as possible. We found that those challenges were exacerbated by the lack of access to expertise, as we mentioned before, and the lack of innovation in appropriate, environmentally friendly, sustainable building technology. These conditions motivated us to pursue research in innovative architectural and building technology that could address those shortcomings. And so we began to do research around those keywords: low-cost materials, locally available, low-cost technology. We choose bamboo and the corresponding technologies as an ecological, sustainable material entry point. Several varieties of bamboo plants are known locally as versatile natural material that local people utilize for various applications. It has a shorter maturation time than timber, excellent material properties, and with proper treatment and design choices, bamboo could last well into a lifespan of 15 to 20 years. Our projects included the implementation of research that explored the extent of the bamboo bundled slats for curvature structural forms, and the foldable transformable modular structural system. Being part of a university as an academic and research entity also afforded us to combine our research works with teaching and public service as mandated by the Indonesian law. We planned both structural systems for their implementations in the post-disaster transitional shelter or housing and public facilities that would benefit from those material capacities and the versatility of the system. Learning from the implementation of those true structural systems on three different sites, we had the opportunity to evaluate three constructed prototypes from these research projects that centered around exploiting bamboo's excellent material properties. We utilized preserved bamboo for all three structures. Those structures were constructed on site as part of the combined format to accommodate the prototyping part of the research and at the same time to meet the public service responsibility. Albeit being spread between three sites and three distinct partnering communities, we maintain the same aim: to introduce a low-cost, innovative, safe structural system that utilize ecologically friendly material to benefit low-income communities. Of the three projects, we could now consider two of them as failed, even though they perform as designed technologically. In this presentation, instead of evaluating the technical performance, we include the aspect of observing and reflecting on the processes happening during the research planning and execution. And so, observing the contrasting post-construction states across the three projects, we decided to reflect on the processes that took place during the research planning and on-site execution. Inspired by our readings on Groth and Wang about the extent of multidisciplinary nature of architectural discipline, it dawned on us that to find out what we missed in the failed experiments, we might have to learn from outside of the scientific or technology-centered architectural studies. And so we started to learn from social disciplines on research design and what they found in social works and public health that have evolved towards a more inclusive approach in producing innovations that address health, but also equality and equity aspects in their research processes and implementations. The points included reflecting on the interests, stakes, and partners formats across the three projects and asking questions such as who are the partners that form the partnerships toward the project realization? What were their roles in the partnerships? What biases influenced how each partner see the world? And what stakes did each have that was either channeled or projected through the buildings? What motivated them to agree to form the partnerships in the first place? The first project is a prayer hall or a small mosque designed and constructed between 2014 and 2015. It was a stepping stone in that it served as a testing ground for the research team of the combined format between research, teaching, and public service. We utilized the bundled bamboo slats to form arches and curved beams that function as structural elements and form givers. Our on-site partners during the construction was a farmers' organization representing the community's local farmers. The research team were the principal investigator and also mentors, while the students were assigned as designers to implement the research topic into their design, and the partner organization was the beneficiary. While we considered the structure performed relatively well and provided the team with a life-size benchmark for the next technological innovations, time revealed a lack of ownership from the beneficiaries' part, even though we had formally handed the project over. This sentiment was evident from the infrequent use of the space and the obvious neglect with hardly any initiative to maintain the completed building. This particular project was the first cycle in the research roadmap planned by the team to explore the modular transformable bamboo structural system. The partnering NGO, which had been operating in the area for several years, arranged for a site to be made available and invited us to collaborate to provide a space to accommodate an aquaponics center that would display the aquaponics system as a learning medium for the local population. We accepted the invitation and expanded the goal as a space to do a prototype and disseminate the innovation of the transformable structure in one go. We also partnered with the local government at the village level to grant us access and use of the assigned land to construct the structure. The innovation we championed in this structural system was its capability to be prefabricated, space-saving, and ease of transport in its folded state. Deployed, the modular units have the capacity to accommodate multiple spans by adjusting the rotating angles of the joints. The modules had the planned redundancy aspect to increase its structural integrity. Combined with the rotating joints, it would enhance their reusability by accommodating different configurations in their second life. And although the function it housed was not necessarily residential, we believed the structure could still serve its purpose in the post-disaster housing sector. Similar to the previous project, this was done using a combined research format of teaching and public service. Once again, while we considered the structure a successful proof of the technological concept, it had its own share of lack of ownership from the local community. It was evident from the limited use of the space and the obvious neglect with hardly any initiative to maintain the completed building from the beneficiaries' side. The third project was the second cycle in the research to explore innovation in transformable bamboo structural system. The development was done through 2019 and completed nearing the year end. The intention for this one was to test and examine the reusable and reconfigurable capacity of the structural modules previously erected somewhere else that then dismantled for the purpose of this experiment. We utilized structural modules identical to those constructed for the second project. In contrast to the previous two, this project displayed a stronger sense of ownership from the beneficiaries. It was evidenced by signs of daily occupations, heavy use, routine maintenance, and upgrades that they independently initiated. This was distinct since the other two had the research team initiate all the regular checkings and maintenance. So, in retrospect, The research team had always learned about the challenges of hazard mitigation from a technological point of view. We relied on lab-based experiments and testing prior to prototyping the innovation outputs. We have always positioned ourselves as the sole problem solvers to the research questions, while assuming the validity of the research questions was warranted by our observation and literature study as researchers in building technology. We have always opted for experimentation as the strategy of choice in our methodology, culminating in delivering prototypes through technical modeling and simulations. Further, it was in our interest to share our research products through formats of disseminations and public education, other than building prototypes as proof of concept. The partnership metrics here reveal the external partners and our partnership formats in those three projects. We defined partners as entities or individuals representing the groups to whom they were members or supposedly operate in the group's interest. Our partners in the first project was the local farmers group represented by the chairperson. Similarly, our partners in the second project were the NGO's chairperson and local leadership representing the residents. On the other hand, the third project had us partnered with community members who took turns representing their community. While the roles and the contribution of each partners to each project showed a degree of similarities, we found some contrasting facts in terms of the individuals appointed as the partner. Partners in each project essentially represented their group's interest. However, one observation point stood out. Our consultations and discussions during the first and second projects almost always happened between us and the same persons in charge repeatedly and constantly. In contrast, we recollected that the beneficiary community in the third project was organized such that they arranged rotation among themselves whenever meetings with the researchers needed to happen. The second matrix maps the interests of the partners in each project. While naturally the issues of interest were unique to each partner, we found a higher degree of complexity in the partnership during the second project. Since our interaction during this project also involved a public workshop in which other villagers were invited to partake, we saw that each element of our partnering entity had different motivations. We also recalled receiving multiple direct suggestions discrediting the local leadership as self-interested by attempting to have their kin person in the construction work. We also reviewed our records, which showed we were unable to clarify this matter with the leadership directly. We thus decided to let our NGO partner deal with the said suggestion with the assumption that the NGO would have the more familiarity with the local politics. We were never sure up to the project's end how this issue actually got resolved. This metric shows the proportion that each partner in the three projects had relative to that of the researchers, which is explained in the slide 10 or 3 slides before this one. In the first project, the research team had more stake in the partnership since the local partner had no immediate urgency from materializing the prototype. In the second and third, we observed a rather balanced proportion between the beneficiaries' interests and those of the research team. Relating these metrics to the previous two, the fact that our engagements with the beneficiaries in the first and second projects involved only the same select individuals might have unintentionally pushed individual agendas into the partnership. Potentially, it could have gravitated towards shaping the agreed goals to serve the rather exclusive interest instead of actually serving the interests that really represent both communities at large. In contrast, the rotating shifts that the third community arranged managed to distribute information and issues more equally among themselves. We believe that enabled them to maintain a higher level of transparency within their ranks and also towards the research team. We believe this explains why the first and second project implementation saw a very low rate of sense of ownership and a higher rate of neglect compared to the third. And so the evaluation in the previous slide allowed our team to further ask critical questions to ourselves, such as who determines the aims and course of the actions in research? Who sets that qualifications and why? Who needs to have the project implemented the most? Who gets to decide on the goals? And who should benefit from those goals? Who will benefit from the research and to what extent? Who could and has the right to define what the benefits are? Who should determine what portion of the benefit goes to whom and how? Who has the right to produce knowledge? Who has the right to determine how one should produce knowledge? The honest answer to those questions revealed several assumptions we overlooked and considered non-questions during the research planning, while at the same time aiming to offer greater implementability of the outputs. We found out that the research team focused first on producing or delivering the end products and packaging them as knowledge, but overlooked underlying factors during the design or research planning and process. That is, the local situation and context experienced by the beneficiaries. For example, the question of whose voice from the community did the research team receive unraveled the discussion that brought in the issues of vested interest, personal biases, and the extent of influence or agency that the vocal partners wanted to assert in the project. The fact that there were allegations of village leadership appointed their next of kin as the project laborer revealed the varying vested interests that a research project might be exposed to. The fact that the researchers interacted mainly with the NGO leader to represent the village residents showed the possibility of personal biases that influenced the planning. The fact that the school representatives' approach to the research team with their clearly stated concerns and needs showed the level of agency they want to have in the process. So what we learned from this evaluation is that it is important to match and integrate users' interests into the design planning to answer users' concerns by involving users in research planning and implementations. But going further into that aspect, it is also crucial to be sensitive to the heterogeneity of the interests between individuals within the partnering entities that might sway the agreed collaborative goals of the research project. Thus, it is important to reorient research from producing innovative products to producing contextual innovations. We can achieve this by developing an awareness of the collective nature of knowledge production affected by factors outside the core competencies. For our research output to have a higher degree of implementability, the research cannot be assumed to occur in a vacuum or a sterile, controlled lab environment. And thus we concluded our presentation. Thank you so much.